Hello, my name is Marta, and I am so excited to introduce my first self-published book, Light in the Dark, A Guide for Navigating Winter Depression. I just want to walk through the book and the way it's laid out, just to give you an idea of what we have in store here. So, besides the introduction and, disclaimers and things of that nature, what we have is a section that is specifically about mental health. And so it talks a little bit about seasonal depression, and we also go into navigating care for medication, choosing a therapist, and I've included a worksheet on medication consideration. And so what I mean by this is if you're someone who is considering medication, for a lot of people, it's a really tough decision to make. Most people, at least that I've worked with, don't come to this decision lightly. They put a lot of thought into it for lots of good reasons. And so I put together this worksheet to kind of, not as a way to tell you if you should or shouldn't take medication, but as a way for you to kind of ask yourself questions to see what's important to you, what do you value, and you come to your own conclusion on whether you want to take medication or not, or even explore considering medication. And of course, you would go through the final decision, ideally with a qualified practitioner, so somebody who can prescribe medication. So yes, as I mentioned before, how to choose a therapist, information on nutrition and mood, and then we go in. Oh, before I go further there, I have information here about holistic practices, so things that are not so much of the Western treatments for seasonal depression. So as far as Western treatments goes, these are the ones that, usually you will find through a psychologist, a therapist, and things like that. But holistic practices are things that are more related to other professions or other ways of healing, and that's including ancestral practices and more traditional healing methods. So we're looking at acupuncture, mindfulness, herbal consultations, Ayurvedic consultations, Qigong, things of that nature. And so after we go through all of, the disclaimers and the mental health information, we start to go into the sections of the book that talk about the different seasons. And so in these workbooks, we start with the autumn equinox, followed by Samhain or Samhain, then winter solstice or midwinter, and lastly, Imbolc. And the reason I bookended from the autumn equinox to Imbolc is because these are the months that are the colder, darker months of the year. And I wanted us to be able to get a head start on it starting in the autumn equinox and follow it through all the way to those first months where we begin to see spring emerge. And so each seasonal section has the same components. There's an introduction section that talks a bit about the season itself and global themes, keywords, followed by a section on herbal symbolism. Now, I'm not a herbalist. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and so I cannot give information about, taking herbs for wellness, but I can speak on the symbolism of these herbs and how these symbols might be of support and use for you as you kind of put together your own creative practices. And so we have herbal symbolism with a few recipes. And why are there recipes in a workbook about mental health? Well, because this is a workbook that is taking a holistic approach to it. With depression, sometimes it can fall into the not fall into the category, but sometimes symptoms can show up as overeating or undereating. In either case, we got to eat. And why not utilize food as a way to help nourish our bodies and nourish our mind at the same time? So I included recipes in each chapter, in each seasonal chapter, that kind of go with the theme of the season. Next, we have journal prompts. And journal prompts, again, are centered around the themes of the season. So for autumn, we're looking at the theme of harvest and balance because it's the equinox. And because it's the autumn, we're looking at releasing and letting go. Next, we have creative expression activities, so art activities. Each art activity features an example of something that I've created for the season as well. I've found these activities to be very helpful for myself when working through not so much seasonal depression, but depression in itself. There's a lot of insights that we can get when we're tapping into the creative mind, getting out of that analytical mind and jumping into more of a symbolic part of our mind can really help bring out some insights that might be blocked when we are trying to overanalyze everything. And so there'll be a few art activities, again, each grounded into themes of the season. And then lastly, we have a worksheet that is more about an experience. So the journal prompts are more about journaling and having insightful questions, where the worksheets are about taking action. So for the autumn, we're looking at this worksheet on creating a sensory space, basically kind of creating a space in whatever way you can that feels comforting and nourishing. I think one of the things that can be particularly scary about seasonal depression or just depression in general is how much it can cause us to withdraw and feel very, very isolated and alone, even if we have the presence of loved ones around us. So, the purpose of this exercise is to intentionally create a space where we can cozy up and be on our own, but in a way that feels supportive and nourishing instead of separate from the outside world. So that is an idea of what each seasonal chapter kind of looks like. I just want to point out here that some seasonal chapters have a little extra in the introduction to the season. So for example, for Samhain, we have the standard, global celebrations and universal themes, but I also included a chapter here on the Kaliak. And then let's see if it's over here. Midwinter. There might be an extra section in here. Let's see what we got. Nope, there's not one in there. Oh yes, it's in bulk. So in bulk, I have an extra section here on languishing, because this is kind of the time of the year in that early spring, which is in bulk, where we might not quite feel ready to come out of that sleepy winter stage yet. And for some folks, we can start to question, like, are we going to be okay? Am I okay? Why don't I feel more energy? It's nice outside. What's going on? So I wanted to include a little bit about languishing because it just feels so appropriate for that time of year. Once you go through all of the seasons, or the 4 seasons that are covered in this book, I want to point out that in the appendix, there's resources here that might not be referred to through the rest of the book. So there are mental health resource numbers not for emergency, like crisis emergency, but if you're needing to reach out and have extra support. Vagal nerve exercises for stress reduction, grounding and centering techniques. There's a symptom tracker chart that I put in here that's good for a month of tracking symptoms. It just serves as an example, and of course you can create your own or use digital, which most people will use an app or something like that. Resources for books and online resources, and then a section on art resources, so journals and things like that. So yeah, that is the book Light in the Dark, A Guide for Navigating Winter Depression. There is a companion book that I'll make a different video for, but the companion book centers more around rituals and tarot. And the introduction on that book explains why it's separate. But for now, we have the Guide for Navigating Winter Depression. And if you get the book, let me know what you think. My contact information is in here. And looking forward to sharing this book with you.